Thank you. Welcome everyone to the May 15th, 2023 meeting of the Burlingame City Council. So happy to see you all here. So happy to have so many young people here. I'm sure you'll stay for the whole thing, right, guys? It's lovely to have you with us. As our first order of business is the great pleasure of inviting perhaps the best voice in the room. Cantor Creeper, please would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Cantor. If we could do the roll call, Madam City Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to first bring in Vice Mayor Colson.
She's in, but we'll do the roll call and then she's going to request participation.
Okay. Then
Councilmember Stevenson.
here.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Beach. Here. Vice Mayor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Bravitt.
So somewhere we want to try to fix that.
Ghost.
It is off.
Does look like
So go to Zoom.
It's like straight out of Alien.
Sorry.
Culprit.
Much better.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. You are an amazing protector of democracy in so many ways. We appreciate that. That takes us to the item to allow Vice Mayor Colson to join us. She is battling a very common communicable disease, which we're all familiar with. And so, Madam City Manager, how do we do this, or City
I'll
Attorney?
request. I would like to request permission from my colleagues on Burlingame City Council to attend and participate this meeting via remote due to the fact that I am just now recovering from a communicable infection.
Very good. And do we need to take public comment?
You do need to take public comment. And then after that, if there are any questions from the council, and then you can take a vote.
Very good. Would anybody in the public like to comment on Vice Mayor Colson's dialing in? I see none here. Is there any online? There is none. I would entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by, did you have a comment?
No.
Motion by Councilmember Beach, seconded by Councilmember Ortiz. Have to do this on roll call? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Beach.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Colson.
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes, so that's taken care of. Thank you very much. In terms of upcoming events, I'm embarrassed that I forgot to check in with our city librarian and park and rec director. And so I would invite you to the podium if there's anything that you'd like to brief the council on. And
Before we do that, could we report out from closed session, Mr.
beg your pardon, I missed that part. Yes, you're right.
Sure.
Could we have a report out? We did have a closed session this evening. Could we have a report out, please?
Great, thank you. So I'm going to report out from the closed session that happened on first on May 10th. And so there was no reportable action from that closed session. And then from tonight's closed session, there is no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. I would, if there are events to advertise, I'm sure it's in my email. I have been swamped lately, so I didn't see them. I apologize. So I'm going to invite the Director of Park and Rec and our Chief Librarian to brief the community on some upcoming events. And thank you for covering for me in a very public way.
Well, that's okay. So the first one was our next senior field trip is a tour of San Francisco's new public spaces. So it includes the ferry terminal, the Venus statue, Yerba Buena's garden rooftop park, the Sister City Garden, and a couple more. And that's on May 25th. And you can sign up by calling the Parks and Rec Department at 650-558-7300. And the other is an invite, and you all should go, to our championship games for our spring season of bocce ball and adult sports leagues. So the bocce ball final is on Thursday, May 18th at 6:15 in Washington Park. And then we have three games for softball. They're all at Bayside. Division III as Thursday, May 18th at 8:55. The Dad Softball League is Wednesday, May 35th at 8:55. 31st, sorry. And the Division I softball is Thursday, May 1st at 8:55. And just because I find it very darling, do you want to know what all the divisions mean?
Yes.
All right. So we have 4 divisions. They don't go all the time, but Division I is I catch all the balls all the time. Division II is I catch most of the balls most of the time. And Division III is I sometimes catch balls. And Division IV is I try and catch balls. Yeah. So there's only 2
Division IV
divisions this season that will have playoffs.
Division 4 should just be, I just want to have a ball. That's all. Yeah.
I know the ball is round.
Thank you very much, Director Glomstead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So first one is congratulations to Lauren Lynn, our new Burlingame Hillsborough Youth Poet Laureate. We had the event, the inauguration event on Friday. It was really great. Lauren Lynn's poem was really great. Almost made me cry. Almost made me cry. So I'll just read a little quick bio about her. Lauren is a Hillsborough resident in Castiglione School in Palo Alto, and was one of 8 talented applicants vying for this, excuse me, newly inaugurated title. Lauren comes to this position with a wealth of accolades and experiences, and in her own words says, "My goal is to use spoken word as a vehicle for change in a society divided by fears pervading our differences. I am passionate about poetry and believe in its healing power to transcend interpersonal experiences such as spoken word between poet and audience." We look forward to more from Lauren. Next up, library-sponsored blood drive, May 19th, right here in front of the library, 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Drop-ins are welcome, or you can make reservations, see our website for the reservation part. And then lastly is Let's Talk ESL conversation classes at the library. Each Thursdays. Sorry, I didn't write down the time. So it would have been useful if you'd gotten the email because I didn't know to put the times on there. Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have ESL classes. One is Zoom, one's in person. You can see the website for the time. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCauley, our librarian. And thanks both of you for briefing everybody. Colleagues, are there any other events that you'd like to let the public know about?
I have one, Michael.
Yes, please, Madam Vice Mayor.
On Friday, June 2nd at Filoli, we are having our Pride kickoff, and the community is welcome. You can get tickets online. We will be having a very fun drag event with a lot of lovely people that will be, enjoying the yard and the garden. So it's a wonderful place to come, fun to do. It's family friendly. And you can look on the Filoli website and it'll all be there. But it's a wonderful, wonderful Pride event.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Seeing none others, then that's all for upcoming events. That brings us to a new item on our standard list, and that is disclosure of SB 1439 conflicts. And since I haven't handled this before, I'm not sure who to turn to. Councilmember Beach.
So you can turn to me, Mr.
Okay.
So this is, so SB 1439 is a new code section that requires that candidates running for office make certain disclosures if they have taken campaign contributions over $250. So if any council member is in that situation, this is their opportunity to make that disclosure. And so I think the appropriate thing is to ask any of your colleagues if they need to make any disclosures, and then they can make the disclosure.
Sorry, and this is running for any office or
Running for, yes, running for any office.
any office at all? Okay. So,
It's a California, it's for California, and it's for,
so colleagues, would anyone like to disclose campaign donations in light of SB 1439? Yes, Madam, Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, this is a very complicated law and appreciate this will be a standing agenda item. So I am just stating for the record, because there is this law, any donation more than $250 from a person with a potential financial interest on the agenda, you have to disclose it. I am unaware of any donation I may have received that presents a financial conflict. So I'm stating that for the record. And if there's any member of the public that is aware of a financial contract that I may not be aware of, very complicated law, please state it for us publicly or let us know, writing into the city clerk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody who'd like to comment on this item? I see none in public. Are there any online, Madam City Clerk?
There are none.
In which case, can we consider this disposed of? Yes, very good. So that takes us to the work of the council, and that is we are going to start with presentations. And the first is a proclamation recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And who is here to present? Is there somebody? Okay, well, that's too bad, but I will just briefly paraphrase this. So we collectively in the state of California, and it may be a federal suggestion as well, determined that May should be Mental Health Awareness Month. And we did that collectively as the people of California, and we are honoring it tonight as the people of Burlingame for a couple of important reasons. And I won't read this all, but just some of the salient facts. So during COVID, 29% of seventh grade students and 43% of 11th grade students in San Mateo County reported chronic sadness and hopelessness during the previous 12 months. Every day, millions of people face stigma related to mental health and substance use conditions, including feeling isolated and alone, going years before receiving any help. And if those conditions are left untreated, their life expectancies are 25 years shorter than average. It's really pretty dramatic. And needless to say, while mental health conditions are common across all of us, there are communities that face inequitable access to service and oftentimes more hostility that, of course, exacerbates mental health and anxiety. And those include people of color, LGBTQ, youth, and older adults, among others. The San Mateo County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Office and a number of other partners are organizing activities this month for community members to participate in under the hashtag Share4MH. And basically, the city wants to increase our public's awareness of these programs, of the concern. We want to try to destigmatize anxiety and mental health. If you're feeling anxious, you are not alone. There are a lot of people out there, and there are ways that you can find help. And that is the reason that we honored May as Mental Health Awareness Month. We also took the initiative of putting a brief message, you're not allowed too many words, but a brief message in all of the garbage bills. So anybody who opens up their garbage bill, which is always an anxious moment, let's face it, will see a message that says, if you're feeling alone, you don't need to feel alone. And here are some resources that you can tap into. So I just wanted to share that on behalf of the city. We have a proclamation that we will send over to the county. And I guess that's it. And well, let me actually open it up for public comment. Or let me actually let me back up and ask my colleagues if they'd like to make any comments on the importance of mental health. I didn't tee it up, so it's okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Yes, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Brian Shields, and I'm a field rep for the Carpenters Union. I'm also the chairman of a new committee that we've come to light. It's called Each One Reach One. And just to sort of tee up what it is that you were talking about, sending out that note in the garbage bill. Also, 988 is now a nationally recognized number that is for mental health services. So if somebody's in crisis or needs somebody to talk to right now, 988 is a great resource for that. Also, you can text home to 741-741, and that's a text-based service for somebody who may be more inclined to use their thumbs than be able to speak. So I just I appreciate the fact that you guys are taking this seriously and look forward to talking to you about it.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Anybody else? Madam City Clerk, is there anyone online who'd like to comment?
No, there is not.
Okay. And then we will move on to the next presentation. And this presentation is a proclamation recognizing May as Jewish American Heritage Month. And I want to thank Arlene Rosenberg and Cantor Yona Klieger for joining us tonight for this proclamation. I guess I will read parts of this out. But to be honest, what I want to do is take a step back for a second and also invite my colleagues to comment. So we recognize May as Jewish American Heritage Month across the country. And for me, this is important. My stepdad was Jewish, and our whole family, I have cousins living in Israel. And what I know personally is that this is not just a faith, it's a people. And what I think our city wants to do always, in what we did at United Against Hate, and maybe some of you were there, but there were a lot of others, is make sure that every group, a minority group, is not bullied by the majority. It's not bullied by other people, that everyone feels welcome, no matter what your faith or your demographic or your wealth or anything else, that everybody should be welcome in the city of Burlingame. And it is particularly important to recognize Jewish American heritage because it is a group that has been picked on historically and has been picked on recently and picked on in our own city in ways that are pretty horrible. And so we absolutely stand shoulder to shoulder with our Jewish residents, our Jewish friends and family, and are appalled by those actions. So I wanted to sort of say that at the beginning. I will tick over some of these key points, but I really wanted to focus on the Burlingame element here. So the proclamation calls out that Jewish Americans have been an important part of the American story and contributed across American life and culture since our nation's early days. The federal government declared May as Jewish American Heritage Month, recognizing these contributions that, well, so many of us are immigrants, but that Jewish immigrants have made to the country, to the United States. The proclamation notices that generations of Jews have fled to the United States in search of a better life. Not just Jews, of course, but numbers of Jews after persecution in their families, and they have made invaluable contributions. It points out that Jewish Americans connect to their Jewish identity in a variety of ways, either culturally, ethnically, religiously, by following Jewish ethics and values. And here, and most troubling, in 2022, Jewish Americans faced a dramatic rise in anti-Semitic incidents, 26% higher than in 2021. Including, but not limited to, physical attacks, vandalism, verbal and physical harassment, and hateful comments posted on social media. And we as the city share in the obligation that everyone has to stand up against anti-Semitism wherever it exists, and to stand up for anybody who's facing persecution for any reason. We stand together or else we will fall apart. And I think that's the message that we want to convey. Rosenberg or Mr. Cantor Klieger, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, if you wish, I'd invite you to, but if not, then we'll
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would just like to thank you all for recognizing the Jewish community, not just throughout time, but especially now, considering everything that we've been going through, especially in this last year or so. As the grandchild of 2 Holocaust survivors and one parent who is an immigrant, it's personally very, very meaningful to me. I just would like to share with you all a beautiful experience that I had just last week at Burlingame High School, where there was an organization called the Golden State Symphony Orchestra and Choir. And they came and they presented a beautiful presentation to the entire student body of composers who had composed music while they were imprisoned in the Holocaust. And to hear and see this music performed today at Burlingame High School with such a wide array of students of all backgrounds was extremely powerful, moving, and inspirational for the next generation. So thank you to the city, thank you to the school district and to the school for supporting us in that way and in so many other ways. Thank you very much.
thank you, Cantor. May I ask you, for those who may not be familiar, first of all, Peninsula Temple Shalom is a wonderful institution here in Burlingame. Explain briefly what a cantor is.
Well, I get asked this question a lot. And for those who might not be familiar with what a cantor is, cantor works side by side with the rabbi. So the cantor is a full-fledged clergy person. So anything that you might think of that the rabbi does in terms of pastoral work, the cantor does, but the cantor also has the added benefit, the added gift of music. So I lead the prayers through singing, through music. I'm in charge of all of the music in the synagogue, as well as other pastoral duties as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Colleagues, I'd invite would any colleague like to add a comment? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought you did a great job explaining why this is particularly important to us here in Burlingame, and we stand in solidarity with our friends at Peninsula Temple Shalom. Also, Jewish American Heritage Month, celebrating the wonderful contributions of culture that you've brought to our community, but also the 75th anniversary of Israel's founding is very important this year to celebrate. So I just wanted to say all those things and thank you for the great remarks. And we're moving forward as a community.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would like to add, you did a great job presenting. I think it's very important that we show our support, and I'm glad that you did that. And again, your comments were great. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice Mayor, did you have a comment?
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilman Ortiz. You did a lovely job of articulating that on behalf of all of us. So I want to thank you. I do, as a person who, during college, in my 4 years of college, I was fortunate enough to live with 7 Jewish roommates over the course of an entire 4 years, during which I was really indoctrinated in the culture and the appreciation of the struggles. One of them had lived in Israel for 4 years. Her boyfriend was serving in the Israeli army at the time. And her father was working with Reagan on Middle Eastern affairs. He was his highest level Jewish consultant about work in Israel and Tel Aviv. And when you come from a place that didn't have a lot of Jewish people, it's wonderful to learn and become indoctrinated and to now call so many of my dearest and best friends out of the Jewish community and my closest friends. And that's what I love about our community is the transcending of people, regardless of religion, race, socioeconomic, anything, and how we've all become friends and stayed friends. And it's a beautiful part of Burlingame and this community. And I really want to thank the Jewish community for coming here tonight to help us continue to explore ways that we can reduce hate and other kinds of bullying and intolerance in our community. Thank you.
From your lips to God's ears, as they say. Councilmember Stevenson, I beg your pardon.
No, I would echo all the council's comments, Mayor Brownrigg, on articulating the position and the sentiment. I think in today's society, there are, important things to be very verbal about and supportive, and nothing more important than this. And I'm really particularly happy to see the efforts at the high school level and below, because that's where minds are shaped, if not already, but that's encouraging. And I'm aware of challenges even at our local high school, and I'm just really glad to see that.
So with that, well, I'm sorry, let me open it up for public comment. Would anybody in the public like to add any comments to this item? I see none here in the room. Are there any online at work?
We have 6 attendees and no hands raised.
Okay. Then what I'd love to do is present you each with the proclamation and take a quick picture, and then we'll move on. Okay. Now the moment that most of the audience has been waiting for. Presentation by the Youth Advisory. Please join us.
Well, good evening, council. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Sydney Bliss, and I'm the Recreation Coordinator with the City of Burlingame. One of the program areas that I oversee is the Youth Advisory Committee. We call them YAC. And they have a presentation to give you tonight about all of the wonderful work that they've done this year. But before we do that, I'd like to take a moment to honor our graduating seniors. We have Ethan Wan, Shayna Labarsky, Dylan Arguinaldo, and Claire Goliami. We're sad to say goodbye to them, but also excited to see what their future holds. I want to take time to congratulate them for their accomplishments of getting into top schools. Ethan and Claire are going to USC. Dylan is attending Northeastern, and Shayna is going to Syracuse. So I also wanted to take time to thank them for their countless hours of service to the community of Burlingame. I'm very proud to work with this team, and we have some big shoes to fill next year. So with that, I'll let the YAC start their presentation.
Great.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ethan Wan. I'm a senior at Burlingame High School, and this is my 6th year on YAC.
Hello, Council. My name is Dylan Aguinaldo. This is my 5th year on YAC, and I'm a senior at Crystal Springs.
Hello, Council. My name is Claire Goliami. I'm a senior at Burlingame High School, and this is my 2nd year on YAC.
Hello, my name is Sylvie Olson. I'm a junior at Burlingame High School, and this is my 4th year on YAC.
Hi, my name is Liz Borcell. I'm a junior at Burlingame High School, and this is my 2nd year on YAC.
Hi, I'm Penny Reed. I'm a sophomore at Crystal Springs, and this is my 1st year on YAC.
Hi, my name is Ashley Fong. I'm a junior at BHS, and this is my 2nd year on YAC. Hi, my name is Hannah Ostinsky. I'm an 8th grader at BIS, and this is my 1st year on YAC.
Hello, my name is Sophia Bella. I'm a sophomore at Burlingame High School, and this is my 2nd year.
Hello, my name is Shayna Labarsky. I'm a senior at Burlingame High School, and this is my 2nd year on YAC.
Hello, my name is Adrian Sue. I'm a freshman at Burlingame High School, and this is my 1st year on YAC.
Hi, I'm Zach Wong. I'm a freshman at VHS, and this is my 3rd year on YAC.
And there is also another Dylan on YAC who couldn't make it tonight due to other obligations, but this is his 1st year on YAC, and he's an 8th grader at Nueva. Could we go to the next slide, please? So what is YAC? For those who don't know, YAC is a collection of 13 teenagers ranging from 7th to 12th grade who all live within Burlingame or go to school in Burlingame. YAC meets monthly to plan events around our yearly initiative and also just to volunteer at different events within our community.
And our initiative this year is Belonging in Burlingame, almost coincidentally. In previous years, we've done our Green Initiative, which focused on the environment. And we've also worked on mental health as well. But this year we wanted to focus more on inclusivity and also belonging in Burlingame just by reducing hate and creating conversations that make everybody feel included.
Thank you. All right, so we like to bring some of the events we've brought to the YAC this year, and one of them is the cookie event, which we baked, decorated, and hand-delivered cookies to teachers, district offices, retirement homes to show our appreciation and boost the sense of belonging in Burlingame. And then we also have an event we did called Moms Against Poverty, in which we wrap gifts to give to children and to in the holiday time to bring spirit and once again create that belonging.
One of the first events we did as well is the Muddy Mile, where we helped manage the obstacles in the course and cheered on the participants as they ran the mile. And then later in December, we helped out with the annual tree lighting ceremony, where we passed out light up necklaces and helps facilitate the lines to take pictures of the Santa.
In addition, once a month, we help run an event at the community center where kids get dropped off and do fun activities, such as for Halloween, we did pumpkin carving, and for St. Patrick's Day, we made slime.
Another event we participated in was the Senior Valentine's Day dance. We helped pass out food and engage with seniors in activities such as dancing. We plan on participating in more senior events this summer. Another event we participated in was the Royal Ball, which was centered on families and children, where we also helped out with activities such as storytelling, and the kids all dressed up as princesses for that event.
The Anti-Hate Movie Night was an event put on by YAC where we had a conversation about how to make Burlingame a place where everyone feels welcome and that they belong. And at this event, we played an episode of the docuseries Gutsy titled Gutsy Women Refuse Hate, as we enjoyed snacks and each other's company.
And then our final event of the year is on this Saturday. It's the Mills Canyon cleanup. Last year, we cleared invasive ivy from 80 trees and helped also remove debris from over 500 feet of drainage. And this year we look to blow those milestones out of the water and also just look to restore some of the trails that were destroyed during the heavy rains this year.
And lastly, we love YAC because we think it's a wonderful opportunity for teenagers to develop an initiative that they believe is really important to themselves and the community, and find creative ways to implement it through various events and activities. It's also a great way to unite different groups in the community, from toddlers to seniors.
Thank you.
Much for your time, and if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
Well, thank you so much. I will turn to my colleagues. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments for our, yes?
I just want to add, applaud the effort. It's great to see, and not just maybe a certain age group, but a wide age group, and the fact that people kind of learn and then get inspired by each other over time. And many of you have been there for 3 years now as a freshman, so you started early. But I also love the fact that all of you spoke, and that, that communicates that it's all important to you individually as well. So I really applaud that as well.
Thank you, Council Member. Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. So we are in the process of writing our age-friendly sort of business plan. And I wanted the YAC students to know that one of the things that the seniors that we've been meeting with repeatedly tell me is they really want to engage with youth. So I want to thank you for the work you did going to the Valentine party and helping serve food and be involved with that. The response that I'm getting from the seniors is that it's incredibly meaningful and something they would like to continue. So if you can think of other things that we could codify in our age-friendly plan, it would be amazing to hear those from you. so that we can write them in this summer as we're finalizing that draft.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Beach.
Thanks for your work. What were the most fun events for you?
Me personally, I really enjoyed the cookie decorating just because I like the events when I feel like everyone in Yak is kind of working together, and it was just really fun to bake the cookies and then decorate them and then just delivering them to the faculty and seniors and as well was really rewarding.
Awesome. Anybody else have one?
One of my favorite events is always the tree lighting. It's something I look forward to every year. I think getting to spend some of the holiday season with the Yak members as well as people in the community. I think personally for me, it brightens up my my winter season. And I think just getting to hand out the lights and seeing everybody be so happy, as well as hearing the band and play all the music and the performances is something super awesome.
Yeah. There's definitely a common theme of when you're helping foster and create community. And that's really the heart and soul of Burlingame, right? We know our neighbors, we know each other, and building community is really what makes this place so special. But the other thing you're doing is you're building muscle memory of volunteering. And that will enrich your lives so much as you go on to college, as you continue in high school, for those of you who are younger, and then as you're adults, make time for it, because when you volunteer and you build community, you get that tenfold more than what you give. So keep up the great work, and thank you for your contributions to our city.
Did you want to add a favorite event?
Oh, I would love to hear another favorite event.
Oh yeah, I just would like to say about that community muscle. In the volunteering. I absolutely adored volunteering at the Royal Ball. I got to dance with a bunch of 5-year-olds around the community, and it was an opportunity I wouldn't have had under normal circumstances, as I'm 16 and I was not invited to the ball. So it was great to be there.
You probably outgrew some of those Disney costumes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Please.
I'd like to ask one of this, or all of the seniors, if you'd like, is what would you tell a middle schooler as to why they should join Yak today?
So I've actually been on Yak since 7th grade, and so this is something that's totally impacted my college, I guess, application process. I wrote, I think, 2 essays on it. First of all, most importantly, I was able to grow my leadership and communication and also collaborative skills. I think being on Yak and working with different people with all kinds of ideas is something that it's really hard to find. And I think going into college, one thing that everybody is always looking for is how selfless and how much are you willing to try different things. I think at Yak we try and we also create different opportunities for ourselves and also for everybody else in Burlingame. And I think that's something that not only colleges look for, but also as a person, it definitely helps me get out of my shell and make an impact.
I also feel that Yak helps you build like your self-confidence, like public speaking abilities and dealing with a crowd, because we do a lot of events with younger kids, and oftentimes, there's difficulties. They don't always want to listen, or, there's just unexpected stuff happens, and it's good to just build like thinking on your feet and how to deal with a large crowd. And just another thing as well is I feel like it keeps you close with a lot of people from different schools and different grades. I know I would not interact with a lot of people on Yak if not for Yak, and I'm really grateful for that as well.
That's cool.
I also feel like Yak allows you to have a higher appreciation for your community. I joined during the pandemic where it felt kind of you were isolated, and through this group and through the initiatives that we've brought forth and the events we've done, I felt never more connected to the community than I have or that I feel now. And I think also, just like people have said, I'd like to reiterate, your leadership skills truly develop in Yak, and through speaking here in front of the council or in front of other presentations, you really gain valuable assets for tackling college and everything beyond college into later into life. So I think it's a really valuable experience.
Thank you.
So I joined Yak last year, and I think it's really helped me grow my leadership experiences, like many people said. And I think it's also, again, a great way to meet new people, like people that you wouldn't have met. And it's also allowed me to grow closer to Burlingame and just to get to know the city more, and then really see how much work goes into it. And kind of being behind the scenes makes you really appreciate
all of the work that everybody puts into Burlingame.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I just want to say thank you guys for sharing. And I think the way you guys just stood up right there and came up with these great speeches is a testament to Yak and what you guys have learned. So thank you very much. Just want to say good luck in college and don't forget us, come back and see us. Thank you.
I did have one last question and then we'll close. So I was interested in the session, I think that you described of sort of, it sounded almost like an open conversation about how to make Burlingame feel like more of a belonging place. And I wondered, there may not have been any conclusions or brilliant ideas. It might have been just helpful to talk about it. But if there were any sort of findings that you all came up with or insights, I'd be interested if you had anything to share.
Yeah, I think from our conversations, a common trend was instead of tolerance, really celebrating people's differences. There's a very big difference between, okay, you're different than me, I'll tolerate that. Instead, having a city, as in what happened before our presentation,
right.
Actually going that extra step and celebrating differences because everyone's different. That's that forward motion that's going to make our city such an example in the world, as I've seen working on this, the Youth Advisory Committee. Yeah.
That's a beautiful insight. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Yackers, thank you guys very much. As I, coincidentally last session, we were honored to be able to honor a community service member who was turning 100 years old, and she'd been here for 50 years, contributing in all sorts of different ways. And I said then what I'm going to say to you, which is great communities don't just happen. They happen by people like you who are contributors, who are giving back, who care about other people as much or more than yourselves. And you're special. I wish there were more of all of you, but we can keep working, keep bringing some of those people over to the bright side of public service and caring about other people. But you guys are there, and thank you very much for being there. So thank you. I guess I have to open it up for public comments, so stand by for a minute. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment? Seeing none, is there anybody online, Madam City Clerk?
We have 7 attendees, no hands raised, so we're good.
In which case you are released back into the wild. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
All right, this takes us to the part of our agenda where we have public comments that are on items not on the agenda, which we listen to very carefully. We're not allowed to react to because it's not on the agenda, but we welcome comments from the audience and from our virtual audience as well. I know we have at least one comment from Mr. Shields. I'd invite you up to the podium, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Appreciate the time tonight. And as I stated before, my name is Brian Shields. I'm a field rep for Carpenters Local 217, located here covering San Mateo County. And also the chairman for the Each One Reach One committee, which is dealing with mental health, suicide, and retention in the construction industry as a whole. Construction actually suffers from the second highest suicide rate in the nation. And so that's part of what I wanted to come and talk to you about, right? The other part of it is that we feel very strongly that labor standards should be applied to development as it comes into the city. Labor standards like healthcare, apprenticeship. Berkeley just adopted these labor standards actually last week under their hard hat ordinance for 50,000 square feet and above. But what happens without it is that we have a workforce that's essentially transitory. I know one particular group, they are a group of framers that go all over the United States. They don't speak English, and they're moved from hotel to hotel to hotel to hotel, and it's an unfortunate labor broker situation, and this is the reality. The other thing about, so when cities adopt labor standards, you're raising the floor for development for everybody. It's not just the union, right? when it raises the floor for everybody, it allows other contractors to compete at a level that is humanitarian, right? And that humanitarian level would be apprenticeship, right? Being able to take a person who doesn't know a craft, that maybe hasn't graduated from college, maybe, or hasn't gone to college, or, various paths that happen in life. And then give them something that they're capable at, that they can do, and they do well. Healthcare for not just the individual, but also for the family, right? Like a whole health plan. And then a living wage, because what we do find is that we have a workforce that's making between 30 to 20 bucks an hour. And they're commuting in from Modesto, from the Valley, right? Just constantly from the Valley and also from Sacramento coming down. And they fill up our job sites every day, and then they try to commute home, right? And a lot of them can't actually make it home, so they stay in their cars locally. So I would like to just, I'll send an email to each of you tomorrow, and I'd like to get together and just talk about this in a longer than 3-minute stint. I appreciate your time tonight, and with that, I have to split. Gotta be somewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Shields, and thank you for your earlier comment too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. As noted, we're not allowed to comment on public comments, so we won't. But are there other public comments?
Yes, we have one email. It said, hello, there's a lady who lives between Oak and the library who consistently leaves large quantities of almonds around trees to feed squirrels. Concerning neighbors have asked her to stop. She appears to be mentally unwell and aggressive when confronted. Reference next door for further information. Almonds are toxic to dogs. Several dogs in the neighborhood have been poisoned by her. Is there an ordinance or signage that could be approved by council to put up publicly to stop feeding the wild animals in this? Thank you.
Are there any others?
We have 7 attendees and no one with their hand up.
Okay. Appreciate that. So we will close public hearing, public comment, sorry. And that takes us to the approval of the consent calendar. By the way, with respect to the comment from email, was that email that you just read?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
yeah. So again, we're not allowed to comment back, but we do respond to incoming messages and somebody will respond to that person. Right?
Correct. I would also just note for the public's information that next door, while individuals may be able to see it, the government itself, we don't have access to look at stories unless we live here. So it's always best to email us directly if there seems to be an issue.
Very good point. Thank you for reminding everybody of that. So that takes us into the consent calendar. I'm going to change order just a little bit. Are there items that members of the public would like to pull?
We do have one email pulling item 10. Oh, what did I say? 10H. Nope, that wasn't it. Was
10J.
10J.
All right, so there's a request to pull item 10J. Are there any other
Oh,
requests? Seeing none, I would like to wait a minute, sorry, it is 10H. 10H is the one from the public, right?
Correct.
Right. I beg your pardon. I'd like to, okay, just briefly. So that would be those 2 items pulled. And I don't see colleagues waving their hands about anything else. So then I would welcome a motion to approve, and I can read the letters or you can.
I'd be happy to do it. I'd move to approve items 10A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I, K, and L.
Perfect. Is there a second? Motion made by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember Stevenson. If we could have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownway.
Yes. And just before we launch into the individual, I'd like to make a general comment, which is it may seem as though the council has fewer policy items, but this consent calendar and many ones before it represent a terrific amount of work from our staff and our teams, and in some cases within council. So although our meetings are sometimes shorter, there's a great deal of work that's represented on that consent calendar, and I just wanted to take note of that. So that then brings us to item 10H. Yes?
I'm sorry, I don't think that 10H was actually pulled. I think I just have a public comment. I think it was, I'm misunderstanding this email. So I think it's just a public comment. So maybe,
Well,
after-
I mean, I think at this point, let's pull 10
Okay.
and have the public.
and then maybe after consent calendar, we can do the public comment because I don't think it has to refers to this. I think I was confused. Is there any?
I would suggest we proceed with 10H
Okay. Okay.
unless the city attorney says.
No, I would agree with that.
Okay, so 10H and recognizing that our Director of Public Works, who's always with us, had a family emergency and is not with us, but Mr. Morimoto, would you like to come briefly to present item 10H?
Hello. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, this item is regarding the OBAG grant that the city was awarded in the amount of 3.1 million. This item here today just adopts two resolutions that are required by the grant. It commits the city to abide by the grant requirements. With the grant application, a concept was used from the bike ped master plan. That design is not final, and details of the final design will be developed further through typically the public, public process.
I appreciate that. If I may, I'm going to add I'm going to read into the record a PS from our Director of Public Works, Mr. Mertuzza. And this is in light of the fact that we received a fair amount of criticism, I think it's just fair to say, with respect to our California Bike Avenue and Road Diet Plan. And this is not to revisit that, but simply to say we recognize that people felt unheard in that process, and we want to do a better job. And so with respect to the Rollins Road Bike Plan, Mr. Mertuzza writes, the North Bike Lane project will go through a robust public outreach process to make sure we hear from everyone and address concerns during the design phase. And so and he emphasizes again, more outreach will be done before finalizing the project. And I just wanted the public to be aware of that. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments for our staff? Yes, Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. I noticed since it's pulled, Director Gardner, the housing element, there's a number of making sure the arena, we've got our draft housing element submitted. It looks like everything's going to be done. ADUs, bonus, density bonus law. So from what I can tell, we are up to speed and meeting all of the requirements from the housing element. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a provision that there's an expectation the housing element would be adopted by the end of this calendar year. We feel that's realistic based on where we're at. But that's, we should be in compliance with that.
Okay. And it looks like the housing element will be back to us any day now, right?
We should receive a letter from HCD by May 18th.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much for that hard work on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments from colleagues? If none, then I would open it up to public comment, and this is the chance for public comment.
So I have a public comment. It wasn't labeled. It is. Okay, then I will read it. Thank you. Thanks for calendaring this item. An update is long overdue. A couple of things to clarify. One,
I think that was for Tuesday.
what?
I think that was from the Tuesday.
Oh, you're right. That's where my confused.
Yeah, so go to the next one.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I confused myself. All right, good evening. I would just like to clarify something per the staff report. The city intends to put a class 4 bike lane on Rollins Road. Such a class 4 bike lane will result in dozens and dozens of parking spaces being removed next to the frequent driveways along Rollins. Is the city set to do that? Instead of considering a less drastic design such as simpler buffered bike lane? Once a commitment to a class 4 bike lane is made in the grant application and in a resolution, it's difficult to pare that back. Just wanted to be sure council is okay with proceeding towards a path of significant amounts of parking removal. Seems the businesses would prefer a less impactful design. I know it is early in the game, but better early than late. Thank you.
Thank you to that public comment. Mr. Morimoto, do you have a reply you'd like to make?
I don't think we're necessarily committed to that, as stated, and I think it's still going to go through the process and we're still going to get input. And I think ultimately we're going to implement what the community wants. I mean, we can verify that, early in the process, and we'll deal with it if that's the case.
Thank you very much. And I think ultimately what the community is always committed to is making sure we do the best possible job of listening. But we're also, we collectively have scar tissue up here to recognize won't always make everybody happy. And that's why we're here. And we're trying to make tough decisions that are in the best overall interests of the community. But I'm pleased that this is still a fluid project and there's time for people who are business owners or future residents to be able to opine on the best design for Rollins Road. So thank you for that. Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. I also just want to comment as one of the two people who was working on the Rollins Road specific plan, which I think we've all updated, that there was an extensive amount of community outreach around that plan, and including the conversations around the street structure, road diet, parking, safety, pedestrian and bike access. So we already have received a lot. I look forward to receiving more. And then just as a secondary note, as a person who owned a business on the 1800 block of Rollins Road for a decade, it is an incredibly dangerous street. There were on multiple occasions semi trucks that actually took out between 3 and 4 parked cars in front of my business. There were dangerous crossings that occurred quite often as people parked across the street and tried to run over to the Burlingamer. And so I'm just really happy that whatever the solution is, that we're moving forward on this, and we're, applying for a grant of almost 3.1 million, which is the vast cost of the project. And just as someone who has spent a lot of time there for 10 years, I think this is really important and really necessary. And I look forward to getting the businesses involved, but I think many of them would agree that it is not the safest road for pedestrians and bicyclists right now. So any improvements we can make will hopefully mitigate that risk.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Mayor. And I would say that in this particular case, we also have to represent the people who aren't there yet. We intentionally turned it into a residential district. We can't keep traffic patterns that make it a high-speed industrial district. That's not the vision of this council or this community. So things are going to change, and we'll try to make it as painless, but also as efficient as possible. I think that is it for 10H. I'd make a motion to approve item 10H. Second. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Ortiz. Could we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Colson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes. And that takes us to item 10J. And I find this to be I just wanted to spend a few minutes on this. I recognize time, but this is a fascinating partnership between 3 cities on the peninsula. And I wondered, I'm not sure who to ask. Is it you, Madam City Manager, for background? Or is it Mr. Gardner again? Or Mr. Gardner?
This is Mr. Gardner.
Up and down. My question is, what do we think the outputs of this cooperation are?
So
Maybe you want to describe it briefly.
sure. So for context, this is a joint effort to create environmental justice elements for the cities of Burlingame, East Palo Alto, and the county of San Mateo. It started with, like so many things, the 21 Elements Consortium of the 20 cities plus the county of San Mateo calls out for which cities were interested in doing environmental justice elements. Environmental justice element is something that's required under state law as part of the housing element update. So it's something that was of interest to the city of Burlingame. Some cities had already done their environmental justice elements. So the three that emerged from that kind of call for requests was Burlingame, East Palo Alto, and San Mateo County. I know some of the consultants who looked at the RFP kind of asked, what's the relationship between these jurisdictions? And that's really it, is just, we're all, kind of wanting to, we see the kind of benefits of scale with having one consultant doing particularly a lot of the countywide base research, but I think also it is an opportunity to learn from each other. We've been engaged with the staff of both the county and East Palo Alto, and I think a lot of good things can come out of this. Also, I do want to just kind of note that we offered to be the fiscal agent for this process. Not everybody wants to be the fiscal agent, but it was a case where somebody had to do it, and we stepped up. Burlingame stepped up. I know staff were already, super busy, so it's not something we take lightly, but we wanted to make sure that this process could go forward, not just for us, but for the other jurisdictions. So we have volunteered to take that role. It's our turn. You'll see the safety element is another one that was on the agenda. The county is the fiscal agent on that. So we all kind of take turns. It's in the art of being collaborative and learning from each other.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gardner. Are there any other questions from colleagues? Thank you. I just wanted to understand that better, and now I do. I appreciate it. Are there any, I'll open up for public comment. I don't see anybody in the hall who wants to speak. Is there anybody online who's raised their hand?
We have no hands raised and no.
Very good. Then I would welcome a motion to approve item 10J.
And I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Stevenson, seconded by Councilmember Beach. If we could have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Councilmember Beach.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coulson,
Yes.
Mayor Brownrigg.
Yes. Very good. That takes us through the consent calendar. Thank you for your patience. That takes us into, we have no public hearings, and so we are now on staff reports and communications. And this is to the second half of our conversation that we started last meeting about the street closure, the potential street closure program for Burlingame Avenue. Mr. Gardner.
I'm back. Thank you, Mayor Brownrigg, members of the council. As mentioned, this is a continuation of the conversation that we started in the last meeting regarding community event street closures for Burlingame Avenue and possibly some of the other streets. Do we have a PowerPoint lined up? And just to provide a very quick recap where this all started, the city experimented with the street closure of Burlingame Avenue during the pandemic. It was a community amenity. It was probably a very welcome opportunity to get out of the house. People really enjoyed it. It was perhaps a little so successful that we got a little nervous about the amount of crowds that were gathering during a pandemic, but the promise to the community was that we would revisit the idea of an event closure as the pandemic ended. So at this point, I think we feel that we can have that discussion, and we started that in the last meeting. The consensus, and just to give a little context, here's our aerial map. Burlingame Avenue has, as we refer to the 1100, 1200, 1300, and 1400 blocks. The two that the council focused on in the last meeting were the 1,200 and 1,500 blocks. Those would extend from Lorton Avenue to Primrose Road. And then there was also interest in including Park Road as part of that closure. So what we'll discuss tonight, I'll just go through what's in the staff report. I think there's consensus on the two blocks of the Burlingame Avenue. What staff did between the last meeting and this meeting was check in on the logistics. So it would be involved in any of the blocks, but Park Road in particular had some logistical issues that we wanted to discuss with the council and get feedback on. So it's related to Park Road specifically. Next, please. There's three different alternatives that staff has come up with that deal with the various issues that are inherent with Park Road in particular. Park Road is a little different from Burlingame Avenue, that Burlingame Avenue does not have any driveways. It's basically a full main street. So Park Road is a little different. It is a side street, so there are some driveways, there's some parking lots to access, things like that. Also a construction project underway. The first alternative in the staff report is a fairly simple kind of closing the end of Park Road right around where Pete's and Apple Store is. This is probably the simplest logistically. It leaves driveways where you can kind of see the 238 Park Road building there with a little white rectangle. That's one of the driveways that would be able to maintain access. Parking lot J may be able to maintain access. The construction site at 220 Park Road would also have access. And then the last driveway of concern is at 216 Park Road, which is an office building that also has a driveway just from Park Road. So this would be the sort of path of least resistance in terms of what would be easiest to set up. However, looking at other alternatives, next slide, please, and looking at possibilities for more of Park Road to be closed, a middle option would be to extend the Park Road closure up to the driveway of 216 Park Road, so that at least that building would have some access. Alternative arrangements would need to be made for 238 Park Road, and that could be, as mentioned in the staff report, either some sort of very restricted access between the driveway and parking lot J, so some kind of diagonal cross, or possibly if the owners were amenable, they could have some temporary parking spaces in lot J for the duration, since they would have a harder time accessing the parking spaces behind their property. And then the last alternative is the full closure, and this is similar to what we see on the farmers market day. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So this shows the aerial with the farmers market or fresh market in full effect. So there is a precedent, and perhaps that's where the thought for closing Park Road has come from. The one thing we wanted to emphasize, which is in the staff report, is the difference between a half-day closure and a 2-week closure in terms of particularly these property owners that have the driveways. They can probably make it work for a half a day or an evening here and there, and work around that. A 2-week continuous closure is something different. So that's where we're looking at these different alternatives for just trying to make the logistics work. Those are all three different alternatives, and certainly there may be other options, but those are the ones that staff identified. Next slide, please. And then the other question we have for council, and this conversation started last week, so perhaps there's some consensus at this point, was the particular dates. It's hard to see in this, but this is our city calendar from the website with showing our various things that are scheduled, various council meetings, planning commission meetings. You can see on the 19th and the 20th is the Chamber of Commerce event that has already been planned and programmed, and that's sort of the anchor for this effort. And then the question, as was discussed previously, is does that mark the beginning of a 2-week closure, the midpoint, or the end? And that's something that the council can further discuss and provide guidance. So next slide, please. summary, the two things we're looking for, there's certainly council can discuss other things as well, but what staff is hoping to get from this discussion is a better sense of the dates, so we can start planning that. And then also if there's a preferred approach for Park Road, and depending on which way that goes, we would then engage with the property owners and start making plans. Available for questions.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll get them. Who would like to start the conversation? Councilmember Ortiz.
Okay, so so the idea, so Park Road right now is closed 2 times a week, correct?
That's
So the idea would be we close Burlingame Avenue and then Park, if you do the short version, it would be Burlingame Avenue and then Park would be just closed those 2 days a week. So it's not, yeah, okay, thank you. That's kind of the clarification.
Yes, I understood that. I think
So Park Road is closed for the
That's a good point.
farmers market?
Fresh Market on Sunday and then also on Thursday, you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me clarify. So at least our understanding was Park Road would be closed for the full 2 weeks in the proposal. But as Councilmember Ortiz says, should you go, for example, with alternative 1, which just closes a little bit, the Fresh Market will still be there. So it will have those closures twice a week as well, but then it would also reopen and people would be able to access their driveways again.
Yeah. Yes, Councilmember Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. So in the farmer's market, when it closes all of Park 2 days a week, what has been the feedback from those businesses, particularly on that street and the one large building towards the end where their main access of parking is off of Park? How has that been reasonably quiet since the inception of the farmer's market, or is that still feedback from the business owners?
I don't want to guess. I could just say it's an established pattern. So it's been somehow an agreement has been made. I think there is a little difference in the building at the end of the block at 216 Park is an office building, so it would close, it wouldn't be open on Sundays and presumably might empty out on the evenings when the Thursday market is open. The other building at 238 has residences in it. So some people do live in the upstairs units and so that's a little different. They would be impacted on Sundays and Thursdays. But it's been in place for a while. I think people kind of make plans and just know that they can't access their cars during those time periods.
If I may, I have a question I'd like to direct to Director Glomstad. And of course, I welcome your thoughts too, Director Gardner. My question, so I'm mostly a fan of this idea, like it's a pilot program. But I have read enough about street closures to know that they just aren't automatically successful. And in particular, it matters how much traffic you get. And I wondered, do you think that we need to think about activating the closure during those 2 weeks after apart from the Chambers event, that obviously will activate it in a big way for that weekend, but do we need to activate it? And if we do we have the resources? Do you have the resources to activate it? Because I would assume this would fall on Park and Rec.
I don't know if all of it would have to fall on Park and Rec. Because there's the bid too, that has
That's true.
a lot of input that goes down there. I mean, during the summertime, they have had small bands playing on the avenue. That was not organized through us. So they have done that. We do not have the bandwidth right now to be able to take that, especially with such short notice.
Yeah.
And we definitely need a lot more money because things like that cost money. I agree if at a minimum, if there was some music that would bring, but you can only have so many games for kids and for a while, a day or two of that. that's done with. But I think we could talk to the bid and see if they have any ideas of what they'd like to do too. I just don't know if their funding's much better off than ours.
Yes, I'm sure you're right about both those things. So I just ask you to hold and let me ask my colleagues, or I see Vice Mayor Colson has her hand up. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking this notion of activating the public. So I'm curious what colleagues think too, but over to you, Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. I also see that Joe Sanfilippo has his hand raised, which I'll be interested to hear what he says, because I believe he met with the chamber last week when I was unavailable and talked to them about, I think, some of the timing issues, but possibly also the closures. So the only question I really have is just making sure if Director Gardner, if we were to proceed with alternative one, and the only reason I really included park was when I made the original proposal was because of that notion of getting stuck in that dead end down there as people drive and then they're stuck and then you have people trying to turn around and it gets complicated. If we brought it out just to the and closed it off just right there by the parking garage, we would have a full circulation, I take it, and you wouldn't anticipate any problems moving cars and traffic around?
That's correct. The advantage of alternative one is cars that drive that far into Park Road can then turn into Lot J. They can either park in Lot J or exit Lot J, and so that would work best for traffic circulation.
Okay, that was my question. Is that the recommended best traffic circulation? It sounds
Yes.
like
Madam Vice Mayor, perhaps we should ask Mr. Sanfilippo is
Yeah.
who has his hand up? I can't see that. But
I think he's on Zoom.
Yes, he's gonna, we'd like to bring in Joe Sanfilippo as a panelist. He has discussed this with both the chamber and I believe the bids. So,
terrific.
Joe, if you, when you are ready.
Oh, nice to see you without a mask, Joe.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's good.
So I did discuss this with the chamber. They had a slight preference for starting the closure on Labor Day or on August 19th with the Burlingame on the Avenue festival and then ending it after Labor Day. I will say it was not a majority. They didn't make a vote on it. So that was just some feedback we got. They did want to make sure that there was active programming for it, but I don't think the chamber or the bids or staff or city staff really have the budget or the bandwidth to do it. So I'm not really sure how we would go about that, but that was some of the feedback I got from the chamber. And then as far as the bid and every discussion I've had with them, I did not discuss that they would be responsible for any programming of this closure. They were really just our conduits for getting the survey out. So want to be careful not to volunteer them for work that I haven't vetted with them.
Thank you for that feedback. Are there any questions for Mr. Sanfilippo? I see none. Thank you, Joe. If you can be on standby, obviously. So let's do the easy part, unless there are other general comments. I'm sorry, I guess we need to have public comment. Yes, so let's close this part of the hearing and open it up to see if there are members of the public who'd like to comment.
We do have several emails. The first one comes from Mr. Doug Bozak. He says, I support permanently closing at least a portion of Burlingame Avenue to vehicle traffic for public health, climate impact, community building, and economic development reasons. There is one important land use discussion that should happen to ensure any long-term or permanent closure also benefits business and property owners and ensure the continuing vitality of the city. To state the obvious, retail and restaurant businesses on Burlingame Ave need customers. Customers are people. Allowing more people to live in Burlingame close to the shops on Burlingame Ave will create more customers. The data show that business districts benefit many times more from additional residents who live nearby and make frequent trips downtown than additional visitors who shop less frequently. One of the significant stumbling blocks that could keep Burlingame Avenue from behaving like a beautiful old world market street is the lack of housing in the rest of Burlingame. And one of the significant stumbling blocks to that is Burlingame's continued adherence to the outdated planning concept of parking minimums for housing. The city's commercial cores are distinctly walkable, and Burlingame overall is a 15-minute bike ride from end to end. The parking minimum planning requirement introduces more and more cars and traffic in the city and is going to hamstring any Parisian plans for Burlingame Avenue or the town square development. And Burlingame cannot electrify its way out of the need to prioritize customers over cars. Modeling by the leading nonpartisan climate think tank, RMI, found that besides putting 70 million electric vehicles on the road by 2030 to meet our national climate target, America needs to cut per capita vehicle miles traveled by 20%. I understand that many residents oppose new housing on the grounds that continuing exclusion will protect their home's values. However, even if it is rational for each individual suburbanite to maximize her home value, it is not rational government policy. When housing costs reach the levels we now see in coastal California, sooner or later people start moving to cheaper parts of the nation. And where people move, jobs will eventually, when jobs go away, sooner or later the tax base goes away. And rising home values are canceled out by rising property taxes and declining government services for a population that is no longer working age. Next comment comes from Leslie Beatty. She says, thank you for taking up this important topic and working through the logistical issues of how we might try closing Burlingame Ave and Park Road to vehicular traffic for a 2-week period. The formerly named BPAC, now called Walk Bike Burlingame, is strongly supportive of this trial closure. Closing this small portion of Burlingame Ave/Park Ave to cars transforms the experience of dining, shopping, and strolling in downtown Burlingame. Visiting the avenue will move from a get in, get out transactional experience to a relaxed one where people can visit multiple destinations in a visit and enjoy themselves. The increased vitality could make this part of the Ave into a destination for folks from other cities. Let's give this a shot. Thank you. And lastly, we have an email from Mr. Zabalos who says, I recall the Burlingame Promenade success and popularity during the pandemic. It drew crowds from all over the Bay Area. If street closures are appropriately planned and marketed, the Burlingame Promenade will attract thousands of folks who are restaurants, shops, cafes, and bars. My primary concern is the logistics, ensuring that folks, as much as possible, use alternatives to driving their cars. We have the new bike share program in place, which will be helpful. The plan should include 2 or 3 designated taxi and rideshare pickup and drop-off zones. The rideshare companies can alert drivers of the specified zones if we provide them with ample notice. Taxi companies can do the same. And that is it.
Thank you very much for those comments from everybody. A wide array of comments, really, when you think about it. I'm going to close the public hearing and go back to colleagues to try to give staff some guidance. What I might suggest is that we knock out what I think is probably one of the easier parts, and that is the format of the closures. So we have 1, which is the short stub, 2, which is middle of park, and 3, which is the whole of park for the 2-week period. How about a show of hands? Yes, Councilmember Ortiz.
I'd just like to share my thoughts if you're okay
Please,
with that.
yeah,
I'm in favor of alternative 1. I think Park Road, again, is closed twice a week, and I think that's sufficient. I don't know that it adds a lot more to have the rest of Park Road closed all the time. As far as the timing, I think that if we do it following the street fair would be better, because that would kind of help activate it and help people think about it being open. So I would do it following the street fair is when I would do it. And what was the other thing I was supposed to?
Well, I want to come back to the question of activation because that has budget implications. But in the first instance, I think format and dates are the right practical questions. So appreciate that. Councilmember Beach.
I would concur. I really want to see this be successful. I think the greatest likelihood is to do a compromise solution where alternative 1 has like less impact in some ways to the businesses to give it a good chance. as far as parking and circulation. So I like that idea. And I do agree with Councilmember Ortiz as far as the dates anchoring the start of on the avenue. And I do have some thoughts about activating, but I can also add those after.
Let's come back to that.
Okay, and I do have some comments on drop-off loading zones too. Thanks.
Great. Councilmember Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I don't see 2 as viable. I see it's either 1 or 3 because of the circulation and the parking. The advantage of 3 is that it's close to the the large parking structure is fairly close to that and would be an access point that tends to get overlooked when we think about parking in downtown. But I'm okay with either 1 or 3.
Okay. And the dates starting with
I would do the kickoff
with the
fair and then go through
Labor Day.
Memorial Day,
Labor Day.
or sorry, Labor Day.
And Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. Yes, I'm fine with alternative 1, just because it keeps circulation going. Again, the original proposal that I made was just to consider Park Road and some I just didn't want people to get up to the avenue and then be stuck in that little turnaround. So solving that in whatever way is easiest and facilitates traffic flow. I think we're good with alternative 1. With regard to the dates, the other observation I would point out is that the schools come back around the middle of August. So, and many people are on vacation in August at the beginning and the first 2 weeks. So having it closed, we might attract a lot of out-of-towners, but I think if you want to make it an experience that's kind of fun for people to look forward to coming back from summer vacation, schools kicking off, all those kind of fun celebratory times, football games are starting up again, and and the kids are walking and heading back to BHS and BIS. And the elementary schools, to me, it seems a little more celebratory to start on the 22nd and go all the way through Labor Day when we know the town will be fuller than maybe the beginning of August.
I think that's a really good point, and I concur with colleagues. So I think we have it settled then in terms of geography and dates. So now I'd like to turn with what time we have left, and I'll start with Councilmember Beach, who has a point about drop-off zones, but then also this question of activation and how much we can just hope for the best that things will be fun, or we should try to put our hand on the scale and make it so. So Councilmember Beach, to you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think the public comment brought up the idea of loading zones, drop off, is a really important one, and we're not going to solve that up here, but I think if staff is really thoughtful about that, having some parking spaces set aside and designated for those takeout or short-term loading or drop off for rideshare, I think that would be smart. Regarding activating, it sounds like there's a lot of consensus among businesses and people that it makes in the community, it makes good sense to have some kind of active thing going on. The issue sounds like bandwidth for not it. Who's gonna hire the band or what have you?
Right.
So a solution that I think might be reasonable, the economics of it, I mean, if we put aside even $5,000 in matching funds for the bid or whoever is taking charge of this, or I'm not volunteering the bid. I have a suggestion for how we could go about this. I mean, it seems to me that the kind of activation, music is a great thing to have. Quite frankly, the smaller single, duo, instrumental might create exactly the right ambiance as opposed to a big loud band that some people may like the style and some people may not like the style or can't hear themselves while they're eating. So I think the smaller, the better. And maybe if it's not the bid or the Parks and Recreation Department, maybe have a fund where there's a huge incentive for individual restaurants to have that kind of ambiance. So if they want to hire a small band, they could be reimbursed through the city and we could pay them up to $500 per venue. And we could then get music probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday night for, they could subsidize if they needed to pay more than that, but you could probably get a pretty good single or duo act to do a couple hours of music. And I think that the cost would be nominal, but maybe a reimbursement mechanism for individual restaurants or businesses that want that kind of music out front could be a great incentive to get just the right vibe we're looking for.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any other thoughts on either Councilmember Beach addressed both the importance, but also a practical sort of how might it happen. I welcome comments on either one, whether you think it's important, whether or not you have a solution as to how to make it happen. Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. So I do know that a lot of the businesses have enjoyed having music out in front, and I agree with Councilwoman Beach that, you know, the chamber weekend is the weekend for the big loud bands and all of that, and we'll have them for that weekend. And so that leaves us 2 more weekends to maybe have some different kind of entertainment. So I would, it's kind of short notice, but I would, you know, I like the idea that we could go to the restaurants. The biggest problem would be dueling banjos, if you will, like everybody wants one. And then next thing you know, there's a lot going on. So, you know, we might just put it out there through the chamber or through the bid. Like, would anyone like to volunteer for this? We're going to, you know, we'll have one on this block, one on that block, something. Maybe there's a way to sort of do a lottery or something for anyone who wants to, you know, we just draw out of a hat and you get it, and we limit it to like 2 in the evening or something, you know, so that we don't have an oversatiation. And the other, there might even be people who are willing to volunteer to do some music if they can put their card out and, you know, be for hire. That's another potential option. There's always, you know, checking in with our local bands, meaning our high school. And, you know, I know it's the beginning of the summer, so they're probably not all ready and tuned up and ready to go. They usually are more toward the end, but the Yak might have some kid bands that are in, you know, at Burlingame High. I know there's been a few of them in the past, or a few kids that like to entertain. So maybe just circumventing outside of the regular app, but putting in a call in our, you know, little e-news for anyone who might be interested in playing, you know, youth bands, adult bands, we might pick up some. So just kind of, you know, piling on to what Councilwoman Beach said.
Yeah, thank you.
About that.
Councilmember, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to agree with Councilmember Beach. I think that the idea of having smaller groups versus the big heavy metal band or the big drums, everything, that makes a lot more sense. And that would kind of address if you have the dueling banjos situation.
Right.
I thought maybe Councilmember Beach herself could be out there with her guitar and play a few notes for us. As far as the parking for the ride share, they're really going to be, as if they can park on the end of the closure, they're going to be just 1 block away from the places they're picking up. Or I think that should be arranged on the ends. I don't know that I would want them to drive into the closed area. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we also have to think about, so there's activation with trying to present entertainment and, you know, things that are kind of maybe consistent with the fair and keep people, but we're also doing this experiment to see what this is like on a kind of a normal operating basis. And so I think we need to have policy or in the program that says, well, what are the authorization for shopkeepers or restaurants? Like, I just came back from Europe, so I know what I saw there, and most of those tables that they have in restaurants go all the way out to the road or middle of the public access way. Shopkeepers as well will have clothing and things like that outside. I do think we need to provide some guidance from that standpoint, as well as any kind of entertainment value.
That's a great point. Thank you.
One afterthought, there was two issues, and that's interesting you brought that up, because I remember last time when we had the road closure, there was one particular merchant who kept cheating into the middle of the street where he was not allowed to be. But there was an issue with bicycles that became a real problem. And there was these young kids riding bicycles, doing some tricks and doing things that were very dangerous around the crowds. So I think we should address that up front and make sure that either we ban bicycles in that section or you have to walk your bicycle.
Thank you. The city manager.
Thank you. I think that's a really good point about the bikes. I think we also had skateboarders last time around. In terms of how far into the street people go, my guess is CCFD would have something to say about that for emergency access, right? So we're gonna want to keep a lane, just like they have to do with the when they do Burlingame on the Avenue, they have to have emergency access along Burlingame Avenue. So we'll have to put out some good messaging about what people can and cannot do. And I don't think that needs to come back to the council. I think we can handle it at the staff level.
100%. Vice Mayor Colson.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The other question we might get is there are some restaurants that are on the tail ends that don't have parklets, but who have a lot of clientele who may want to come and pick up a meal or a sandwich and walk out into the area. So is there, I don't know if there's a way I don't know if there's any way to provide kind of like neutral sitting areas that are more just public as, for so that every restaurant, even if they're not on the closure space, could sell takeout food that would be, able to be eaten there. We may not need to, it may just be more one of those things where we, try it for the first week, see how it goes. There might be enough seating on the wide sidewalks in front of those restaurants and, it would be fine, but I'm just almost anticipating that there's going to be a fairness issue that some of these restaurants are going to raise to us. So maybe staff just wants to think about that.
So first of all, acknowledge that Mr. Stevenson was called away on work. And so he's had to step down from the dais. But the four of us will carry on, and I think our work is almost done tonight. So I think we've given a fair amount of mechanical guidance to staff. I do wonder, Vice Mayor, I believe I'm right in remembering that you and Councilmember Stevenson are our liaison to the chamber. And I wonder, as such, if you would be willing to talk to Susan about whether they would be willing to take on the kind of light coordination role that I think is being suggested. In other words, making sure that different blocks of time in different places are kind of people aren't stepping on each other, so that we don't have two bands right next to each other. Would the chamber be willing to take that on? I think would be a good question. Thank you for volunteering.
I'm happy to reach out to her and talk to her a little bit about that.
That would be great. And then I think that can also happen offline. Doesn't have to come back to council, but maybe you could let staff know what they think. Just a quick kind of show of hands. I support Councilmember Beach's idea that we provisionally reserve 5,000 of city funds to help seed some of this work if need be. I do think investing public money in this particular case to make it a good experience. And I'm not talking about the staff time. I mean, I recognize there's going to be a lot of input imposition on the city already, but to have additional resources to be able to coordinate entertainment, I'm in favor of that. I wonder how everyone else feels, just for the city manager's sake.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Thumbs up from Councilmember Ortiz. You, Vice Mayor Colson?
Yeah, what I would just love a little direction on from colleagues is if I'm going to talk to the chamber and we do allocate $5,000 and, would you be open to something like working with the chamber, reaching out to restaurants and setting a cap or something? We don't have to decide the number today, but like maybe a cap and a lottery system, and those restaurants that are interested, and we'll just make sure that they're not in the vicinity. And my question then would be, what about like the side streets? So like Lorton, what if someone down Lorton would like music or take advantage of it, or someone down toward the Salt Yard or Mykonos or up like near Elio or Stella? I mean, is it just in those two blocks or?
To me, anyway, I think we're talking about making sure those two blocks are successful. So I would focus on making sure that that's the part that gets activated and regulated too, for that matter, to the earlier points. Not to say we can't look separately at sidewalk programs, but to me, I think we're focused on those two blocks.
Agreed.
And I see nodding heads, so I think that would be the guidance on that. But in terms of like the shape of the program, welcome, either your thoughts or the chambers or input from the merchants themselves. I think that was pretty much the questions. It is true, and several people have said so. This is going to come up on us more quickly than we realized. I mean, here we are mid-May and we're talking about mid-August. So 3 months to get it together. On the other hand, closing a street with a lot of nice people, you know, what can go wrong? So anyway, so I think this is I think this has been a good conversation. I do want to suggest one small idea, which is when you look at that stub, you have a really interesting space between effectively Pete's and the Apple Store. Should we want to create a little raised stage or a place where jugglers or whatever could be, that's a kind of interesting space because it's just the format of it. But again, we'll leave that to the people who wind up actually organizing this. Any other comments on this item? I see none. That makes us finished. I do really want to thank our city manager and Director Gardner for running with this initiative. It is, again, not on the normal calendar of events to take this on, and we know how much work, especially our community development director is on top of already. So we appreciate it. It's the kind of thing, though, that residents really enjoy. That takes us to, City Council Committee and Activities Reports. Do colleagues have any items to report to the council? I see none. I see none from our vice mayor. Future agenda items. Are there any items that somebody would like to suggest for the future?
Not today.
I see none, to the great relief of the city manager. In our packet, there are minutes from various commissions and so forth. And that takes us to adjournment. Just before we go to adjournment, and I will say I don't have anyone in particular to adjourn to. I do want to recognize, and I mean to do this more often, but I do want to recognize our amazing city team who are with us every evening, and they have families too, and they have a lot of work that they do during the day, and they are with us throughout these meetings and available on call for input. And that's our chief of police and our fire chief and our director of finance and HR and Parks and Rec and library, director of public works, and of course, community development. And we're grateful to all of you for always being here and always being there for the community. So thank you. Anyway, so that takes us to adjournment. Does anybody have somebody they'd like to adjourn in memory of? I see none. End of the meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, no, thanks team for letting me be